It is said that 1 in 1,000 black men will die from police brutality. That number is a lot higher than those of other ethnicities. On average, for men, the chance of them dying by police brutality is 1 in 2,000, while for women, it's 1 in 33,000. The risks peak at about 20 to 35 years of age. However, let's not take away credit from our officers, because at the end of the day, their job is to protect and serve the citizens of America. But how far are they willing to push the limits to demonstrate their authority? In this speech, we'll talk about the causes of police brutality and the effects it has on us as a society. The reason I chose this topic is because it's something we always see on the news. Especially a couple months ago, you couldn't look at the news and not see something about police using excessive force or abusing their power during a protest. So it's something that we talked about back then, and something that to this day we see it a lot. I will be discussing a few things that causes police brutality in America. This includes, number 1, racial profiling. Number 2, stress levels amongst these officers. And number 3, lack of accountability, which causes officers to allow police brutality even more. And hopefully, after hearing a few arguments and stories of police brutality, if not persuade you, at least make you think about what Americans think about our so-called heroes. The main cause of police brutality is racial profiling, especially towards the Black community. It's something we have not heard of before, Evidence of public harming towards the Black community has dated back since the era of slavery, when police disciplined Blacks and recaptured those who escaped enslavement, even though that was something that happened in the early 1800s and early to mid 1800s. The idea of someone in power causing harm to another human being just based off their skin color is something we still see 200 years later. One of the more recent examples we've seen is that of George Floyd, a 46-year-old Black man who died while being arrested after a store employee had called the police saying that Mr. Floyd had bought a pack of cigarettes using a counterfeit $20 bill. Approximately 17 minutes after the first squad car arrived at the scene, Mr. Floyd was unconscious and pinned beneath 3 police officers showing no signs of life. With videos of the 3 officers from the civilians and security cameras, the New York Times put together a video of the officers taking a series of actions that violated the policies of the Minnesota Police Department, leaving Mr. Floyd unable to breathe, even as he had people standing by calling out for help. The day that followed, the Minneapolis Police Department fired all 4 of those involved in the situation, and on May 29th, the court attorney, Mike Freeman, announced third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter charges against Derek Chauvin, the officer seen most clearly in witness videos, pinning Mr. Floyd to the ground. The other 3 officers got charged with aiding murder in the 2nd degree. This is just one of the many cases. This is just one of the many cases we see all across the U.S. Of police brutality because of racial profiling. It's something that we've constantly seen back then, and something that we'll continue to see in the future if nothing is done about it. Another underlying factor that can cause police brutality is more from a psychological standpoint. We're going to be specifically looking at the stress levels these officers endure, because just like all their jobs, we all deal with a bit of stress. Personality traits or mental disorders of offending officers may play a role in the act of police brutality. For example, officers with post-traumatic stress disorder or better known as PTSD, from job-related trauma, may have an increased startle response, a tendency towards suspicion, and problems with aggression. These traits can make it more likely that these officers will overreact and use deadly force when in reality it's not necessary. Personality disorders such as antisocial personality disorder or ADP may also make officers more likely to engage in excessive use of force, or they might feel like they do not need to follow the rules. Personal problems experienced by police officers may increase the likelihood of engaging in excessive force, such as a relationship or stressful life events. In an article by Gene and Douglas Seligman, done in 2018, he says that New York had its highest number of cop suicides since 1987, which is 10 so far. He also says that about 300 cops annually die from on an ongoing study. 300 cops die annually by suicide. And that was from the National Association of Police Chiefs. It's just devastating to see these things happen when police are actually trained to hold back their emotions. Another factor of police brutality is the lack of accountability these officers face once charged. In fact, there are more than 1,000 known police killings every year from 2013 all the way through 2019, which were mostly shootings. 99% of these cases never resulted in criminal charges. On June 16, Minnesota Officer Jeronimo Yanez, the state's first officer charged in an on-duty fatal shooting, was acquitted of all charges related to death of a 32-year-old Philando Castile, who Yanez shot 7 times at close range in an incident that was streamed live on Facebook. This just goes to show that officers are willing to abuse their power more often, especially if they know that they won't get charged for it. As you've seen, we have discussed in our previous arguments the fact of the matter is that police officers feel like they're above the law. They look down upon minority groups, as we've seen with the George Floyd story. At times, they go through intense stress trauma such as PTSD or ADP, which can affect their behavior in high-stress environments. Lastly, police officers also lack accountability, which at most times results in them getting away with situations they normally should be getting charged for. There are many more factors that contribute to police brutality. It's an issue we've seen since the 1800s, and it's something we're trying to fix in our society to this day.